Welcome members to tonight's Environment and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Review panel. This is looking at enforcement and it's looking at our strategy and policy within the borough and how we can try and improve it, or if we think it's okay, then that's a meeting well done. We will start with the agenda, and item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence, please.
Just had apologies from, Ian Kirk is now here. No apologies.
Okay, thanks, Esther. Item 2 is declarations of interest. I'm not going to read out the declarations. Everybody should know it. So if anybody does have any declarations, then please declare it during the meeting. Item 3 is just a discussion regarding the borough's enforcement, the different aspects of the enforcement and how we think it is, and whether or not we think we should make recommendations to try and change either the strategy, the policy, or what type of enforcement we do, and how pragmatic the enforcement should be. Should it be a stronger enforcement? Should it be a soft touch enforcement? So we will divide it up into 3, I think. We will start with planning enforcement. Now, as we know, that planning enforcement is very difficult because there is so much protection for the developers within the appeal process. So members, any comments, please?
No, in fact, Michael Brossard, the only comment I would make is that Max Baker does, in the quarterly review, provide some very good documentary evidence of successes that we have with regard to planning issues, and specifically with regard to enforcement. So I do feel we are getting there. It's just the problem really is timing.
Yeah, I think the actual process for planning enforcement is very slow, and I don't think that's a fault of the borough. I think it lays a lot with the government. They are permitting a lot of development without planning, and they seem to favour the developers in a lot of instances. But where there is a total breach, then I think we should still follow an enforcement line. And if everyone is happy that the planning department is working in accordance with the enforcement policy and strategy that we've got, then I think we can then move on to the next subject within the enforcement.
Yep.
Anybody else would like to comment, please? Tina's got a thumb up, so we will move on to the next one. And the next one, Tina, you got a question?
I'm sorry, Zoom is not good on this this piece of kit, sadly, because my headphones don't work in it. We're getting there with the enforcement. There are a number of little holes, I think, that still need to be patched, not with sticking plaster, but properly patched. And I feel sure that as time goes on and more of the bits of enforcement that we need will arise and make itself known. So I think we are early doors on this. It will keep trickling on until we have the right outcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is regarding enforcement regarding highway repairs. So where utility companies, etc., apply for permits. Everybody has seen the spreadsheet that was sent out by Wayne Scott, showing the income and the number of penalty notices that were issued over the last 4 years. And Wayne believes that it is a very good and robust method, and the borough does rely also on intelligence being provided by not only councillors but also residents. So members, any observations, comments, recommendations that we'd like to think about regarding highways, please? It is frustrating sometimes when you see nobody working on the roads. But I know that from what Wayne was saying, that sometimes you have to let the concrete cure and everything else. So,
Yeah.
but they still have a time limit. Michael.
Yeah, John. In fact, the question you've asked is not to do with optic fibre installations, though, is it? And the disruption that's occurred, for instance, in Brantham Hill Road and College Road. You're talking about specifically Bracknell Forest Council highways, as opposed to the agency companies like who are installing the optic fibre cabling.
The optic fibre cabling companies still have to have a permit to dig up the paths.
Okay.
So
it is an issue, as you know, because three companies come in quick succession, and of course it is causing a great deal of inconvenience to the residents. But I appreciate this again, John, is a government situation that they've relaxed actually the open reach, I think, free for all situation to install optic fibre cabling.
They have, but at the end of the day, Michael, if those contractors have got the right licence to dig up our paths, there's very little we can do, providing they stick and adhere to the terms and conditions of said licence. Moira.
Yeah, so what I like to say about this is there seems to be, and I don't know whether this is in the power of the council, no sort of forward planning with these things, and we sometimes find several people in one area at the same time, and I'm not sure if there's any sort of leeway to try and sort of set a timetable of where people are working, because otherwise it's total disruption. And I appreciate that there's penalty notices and fines, etc., but you know that doesn't help on a day-to-day basis.
I've actually asked that question about 2 years ago, Moira, and it was to Wayne Scott, and it was basically highways can't refuse any utility company the license to dig up our roads, and they don't have to work with other companies, which is very frustrating, and it would probably be more cost effective for these companies to work together. The only time that we actually write to, and it's only the main utilities, is if we're going to do a major resurfacing work on a road.
Yeah, okay, well that's the only comment I've got on that. But
it's frustrating, and I share everybody's frustration with that. And you would think in these economic times that companies would work together, but it doesn't seem so. Nick, please.
Thanks.
Just to come in on that, I would say that the only leeway they have is the fact that they can stop attacking the road at the same time, but they can't stop them completely. So if one says, oh, we're going to spend April doing this, and another company says, oh, we're going to do this in April, they can move one to May, but they can't, they can stop them both doing it in April, but they can't actually stop them doing the work full stop. So it sometimes gets even more frustrating that an area then gets 2 months worth back to back, where, from two different contractors, and that can exacerbate the situation. And going back to Michael's comment, it's interesting that, for example, in Sandhurst, Zoom did dig up every single pavement, whereas it looks like Truly were using entirely BT's infrastructure, and Swift are doing a bit of both. They are using the ducts which are available for BT, but where they've got telegraph poles, they're digging up the road. So it's a bit mix and match at the moment.
Yeah. But again, it's frustrating that those two companies can't work together.
Yeah.
Dig up the paths at the same time. Sandra, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Here I come. Just to say, yes, where we have clusters of roadworks, and we did discuss this at one of our previous meetings, I do think it would help our residents if we could make more of the one network so that they can better understand how to get about the borough more easily. I've done it on my Facebook page, but I think the borough could be making more of it.
Yeah, I remember that. It was one dot. So
Yeah, one
and
dot
we were promised that they would make it more visible on the website.
Yeah.
And I'm sure on the 14th of December, that will be one of our recommendations, irrespective of whether they've done it or not. And it should be much easier for the residents to look up their road. And I would hopefully they would do it on postcode.
Mm.
So you can actually look up and see how long that work
Yeah.
permit is valid for.
Yep.
And if it's overrunning, then just ping a quick email to the council, and hopefully the officers will go out and take necessary action.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
No problems. Thank you.
Mm.
Ian, please.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this exists, but in the dim distance of my brain, I seem to recall that academics looked at volumes of traffic, and they actually modelled gridlock in New York. And I'm wondering whether we could task one of our officers to look at, is there any sort of modelling digital software that allows us to join these issues up and sort of demonstrate that, these issues can sometimes lead to awful traffic problems in Bracknell, and we just seem to stumble over them. And I just wondered whether we could be a bit more proactive, if indeed there was some sort of software that exists to give us a heads up on how these issues, collaboratively have an impact on our highways.
Ian, I honestly don't think that exists. I know they do traffic surveys before major roadworks, but not for minor roadworks. So it'd only be something like installing the traffic lights, for example, along the A322, sorry, say like by the lookout. So they would do traffic surveys before and after, changing it from a roundabout to traffic lights. But for minor roadworks or minor utilities works, I don't think they would.
You may be right, John. I just wondered if there's any sort of existing software that's in there that you can sort of put these issues in there, and it then comes out and says, right, as a result of all these, cumulatively, you can have hold-ups on the A329M, for example. But if I know there has been some research on gridlock, but I don't know if there is any sort of software that exists that allows you to model those complications. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, well, we have Esther, so hopefully Esther will make a note of that, and she can email the relevant department and ask for feedback on that.
That's brilliant. Thank you, John.
No problems, and then that'll be circulated to all members before the recommendations. Nick, please.
Yeah, it's just a comment. One dot network was mentioned earlier, and I have to say I think it works very well. I mean, the council obviously gets, I don't know whether the utility companies themselves update one dot network, but certainly the information gets in there. And if you look around the area where you live, you can see all these roadworks and when they're planned for. So I think that actually does a good job.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. It does do a good job, but it's trying to make sure that the residents know that one dot website is actually in existence.
You mean we should publicise
the answer
it
was
more,
making
basically.
sure that it was prominent on our BFC website.
Oh, right, understood. Thank you.
No worries. Michael, you want to come in?
Thank you. Only really, John, to say that social media can actually be very powerful. Following on from what Ian has said, I think we actually can encapsulate resident concerns. And I do very much hope that Bracknell Forest Council do follow social media on things like We Love Sandhurst, etc., to actually get a feel for the concerns of residents who do feel disadvantaged. It's really, in some ways, it's a thermometer, it's a measure of resident dissatisfaction when things are not going well.
Yeah, but sometimes the residents think that it's going wrong, and actually it's all legitimate. So it is making sure that the right information is out there for our residents, I believe. Nick, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Sorry, it's an old hand. I'll take it.
No worries, mate. Thank you. Anybody else? Any observations regarding highways, or should we move on to the probably the most substantive part of enforcement. So the most substantive part of enforcement, which covers, I think it's 110 offences, is the public protection, or our enforcement with public protection, which encompasses trading standards, environmental health, street trading, licensing, etc., etc. So as I said, we do have a briefing on the strategy and the policy from Sean Murphy, who leads the PPP, on the 8th of December. That will be very interesting, and it will explain how the PPP, the Public Protection Partnership, has to change their priorities and their strategy really quickly. And I don't know if everybody saw the press release about a puppy breeder being prosecuted recently. And 2 years ago, you wouldn't have thought that would have been on the main radar, but it is a very serious thing now, and it's happening more often than not. But we still have normal licensing as well, underage sales, environmental health, as I say, fly tipping. But the fly tipping, I believe, is a very good success. So members, comments, please. Sandra, please.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, there we are. Oh, sorry, be with you in a minute. There you are. Do you know, I think PPP do a really good job. I'm sorry, I think they do. When you consider the sheer breadth of their work, and as a councillor, I've always had good relationships with them. They've acted very spontaneously, very speedily to any resident complaints. As you say, the environmental side, the fly tipping side, we've had some recorded success, which, you know, needs to be celebrated. Just one little thing, I would like the rangers to stay soft enforcement, not hard enforcement. And I know we have discussed that at previous meetings. Personally, I think they have very good relationships with local residents, and they're very responsive and get the job done. So I wouldn't want to make it any tighter. That's it.
Yeah, I think we talked about that, didn't we? We talked about giving rangers a CSAS powers.
Yeah.
And it was felt by Stephen Chown, head of Parks and Countryside, that wouldn't really be appropriate, and we have to take officers' advice. And the last thing I'd want to do is put any ranger in danger.
Yeah.
So if they have a good relationship in their area with the public, there's always going to be the odd person that won't pick up after their dog, but everybody should be a bardo, be a responsible dog owner and pick up after them, pick up litter, etc., etc. But, you know, the Parks and Countryside don't look too bad. So
No.
the Rangers are already doing
They do a good job.
So, yeah.
They do. Yeah.
Michael Brossard, please.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. Really, in fact, following on from what Sandra had said, really, success breeds success. And I do think the key actually rests with our comms department to publicise those successes that we have. They could be minor, they could be major, but I think the situation that you'd identified, John, with regard to that dreadful situation of those dogs that had been sold on without vaccinations and such like, actually demonstrates that we do have teeth. But I think we can extend that, and I think publicity through the Bracknell Forest Council is actually beneficial in making the public aware through the Bracknell News of these great successes we're having. I think we're almost hiding our light under a bushel.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Michael. Totally agree with you. Tina, please.
Okay, I did actually pull my hand down because Michael stole my thunder. Exactly what I was going to say. Michael, well done. That's two of us actually together.
Great minds think alike. Sorry, Tina.
Thank you.
Okay, Ian, please.
Yeah, John, thank you. Just to add to the terrific news story that came out just the other day. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was no imagery with it. And I think that to name and shame, particularly those levels of criminality, would be very impactful. Obviously, we've got to think of the legal issues, but I'd like to perhaps add an extra bit of oomph to our good news stories with images of these individuals. I mean, the puppy farmer, for example, you know, I would want to know if I was going to buy a puppy or, you know, deal with that what this guy looks like. So, you know, I'd like some imagery added to it as long as the legal constraints are met.
I think that's something we could, I think what we could do is actually save that question for Sean on the 8th of December. Or Esther can actually get us a response maybe from the legal department. Because I don't know the actual legal implications, whether or not we would actually be able to, I know we can name and shame, but it's whether or not we would actually put an image of that person.
Yeah, I mean, the police often do it after someone's been charged and convicted. But yeah, let's explore that, because I think that would really add to, you know, the terrific stuff that the team are doing.
Okay, I've made a note of that, Ian, as well. So, okay, Sandra,
Thanks, John.
please.
Yeah, just before we leave the communications thing, Chair, could we please make it a recommendation from the committee that communications liaise direct with public protection partnership to communicate the successes more? You know, I know we've discussed it and we've all agreed it's a fabulous thing and we should do more, but could we please make that a recommendation from the committee?
I think the public protection actually do their own publicity as well.
But, you know, multi-agency, you know, we need to. Yeah.
We need to do like a double whammy.
We do. That's the point. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so liaise with our own BFC as well as the PPP website.
Yes. Yes. Lovely.
Okay, I know they do release a lot to the Bracknell News. So,
right.
And whether or not the Bracknell News report it or not is out of our hands.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but hopefully if somebody's being prosecuted for, you know, serious breaches of the law, then, you know, it is a newsworthy story, so it should be reported.
It is. And if our comms team pick it up in a timely manner, it gets out on Facebook, and then we councillors can be starting to share it more actively.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree with you. Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, Sandra. Yeah, thank you. Do we want to discuss about CSAS and more so with the licensing team, giving them recommendation that they apply for CSAS? For people that don't know what CSAS is, it's a Community Safety Accreditation Scheme, which is in conjunction with Thames Valley Police, and it will give our officers maybe some powers, not to actually put themselves at risk, but things like being able to stop traffic, like the taxis, when they want to do enforcement against taxis or overweight vehicles that haven't got waste, trade waste licensing, that our own officers can actually stop the traffic. So therefore, if Thames Valley Police can't attend last minute, because obviously there's a lot of pressure on Thames Valley Police, that operations can still go ahead and actually save our officers a lot of time and effort and money. Tina.
Thank you very much. The CSAS scheme, I'm absolutely 100% behind it. It's an excellent scheme. Would it give officers powers, even though limited, to halt people they see young children vaping, buying vapes in local shops, because there are now come and vape here? Could that power be extended to these accredited people?
I can actually answer that, Tina, and Mr. Kirk will agree with me or disagree with me, and I'm quite happy if he disagrees with me, but I know that the lexicon has got some of their security staff as CSAS trained, and one of their powers they got is they can actually confiscate alcohol from anybody underage.
Okay. You've obviously not picked up my email from this morning, would you please?
I've looked at that. Yes, I know what. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's an adjunct to this.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks very much, John. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Yeah. I've got that, but I don't think we really want to advertise it too much if we're going to start doing some.
That's right. Thank you very much
intelligence work.
indeed. Appreciate
Okay, Ian, please correct me if I was wrong.
John, I would like to congratulate you. Well done. I'm going to officially award you a CSAS sticker for that. A more broader point, though, CSAS allows you to engage with antisocial behaviour. So things like, people vaping in a way that would cause, nuisance. It's a far broader engagement than specifics. You're absolutely right in relation to confiscation of alcohol. But I think that antisocial behaviour is far more broader, and that's the beauty. I think that the return on investment, as Tina alluded to there, is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so that I think that'd be one of our strongest recommendations, really. But at the end of the day, we don't want to put our officers at risk of being assaulted and things like that.
I think one thing just to remember, John, is part of the CSAS training actually engages in a big element of personal safety. So disengagement and education and all that comes in. But if the risk is so high, officers are trained very capably to disengage from those situations. So safety is a real priority. In fact, the smallest part of the equation is the actual powers. So it's all about safety and education first off. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for that, Ian. And I totally agree that we should never put any of our officers or anybody at risk. Michael, please.
Yeah, only really, John, to reiterate what has been said by other speakers, it's a great achievement with regard to the lexicon that we've got that situation. I know Isabel Mattick was so concerned about people cycling in the lexicon, people with electric scooters. I think the range of opportunities to actually issue penalties, I think, is a great development. Overdue, but I think we are getting there because there's a level of antisocial behaviour in the lexicon, and it does need to be nipped in the bud.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Michael. And it is good that I think they've got 5 powers at the lexicon, so which is very, very good. And long may that continue. Sandra, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do think it's a good idea. They actually have 9 powers, Chair. According to the email that we received very recently, the lexicon staff, and also on a point of safety, they have body-worn cameras, so we're advised. So that would be helpful too. But the range, Ian's right, the range is for antisocial behaviour. Yes, to surrender alcohol if they're aged under 18, power to stop cycles, power to deal with begging, power to issue penalty notices for cycling on a footpath, to issue fixed penalty notices for graffiti and fly posting, and to issue penalty notices on behalf of Bracknell Forest Council for breaches of the Alcohol Public Space Protection Order, and the power to photograph persons away from a police station. So they are quite empowered. And it will be good to see how they get on, what the feedback is from our residents, and to sort of almost use it like a pilot before thinking of spreading it any further through the council. I don't know what other residents think.
Totally agree. But I think wearing body cameras is very, very good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And that would add some more safety to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I think the other power they've got is they can actually ask for names and addresses as well.
Yep, they can. Yes, confirm.
Yeah. Tina, please.
Chair, this is completely different. Trisha's tried to get into the other on the Teams, so I've just dropped her an email to say no, look at the email today. So she's
I've just dropped her a link with the meeting to join.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Tina. We used to have a serious problem in the borough with fly tipping, and then the public protection employed one officer to mainly look at Bracknell Forest fly tipping, and he was tasked with looking into it and everything else. And the success that officer has had has been fantastic. So, and he was an ex-policeman, and it would be nice. I don't know if we would want to have a recommendation whereby we actually recommend that we employ specific officers for specific licensing offences, because normally the licensing team cover a vast array of offences, and something like fly tipping is very hard because you just got to go and gather all the evidence. But the officer in question is doing a fantastic job finding all that information out and everything else. And it is, cutting down on the fly tipping. The money that we received is installing more CCTV in hotspots. So we're actually starting to catch more people. But the other thing is we're actually putting a lot of people off. And the thing with fly tipping is normally fly tippers don't fly tip in the area they live. They normally go to another area. So, if we can keep people out of Bracknell Forest, so maybe. Tina, please.
Chair, sorry about this, but if you have one officer looking at one thing specifically, you have the risk of silo. So there may be lack of communication. That's my only one problem there, looking at that risk.
I think it's more specific, whereby an officer just is detailed to do specific things. I mean, if it's sort of like environmental health, then no, you can't just have an officer because it does involve more than one team. So I'm just trying to think of other things that we could actually make a recommendation, because I think fly tipping is a fantastic success. And I think an officer can specialise in that because they then learn all the tricks of the trade. But if you then said to that officer, oh, now you've got to go and do some underage sales, it's taken away their time and everything else, and they can become an expert. And there's no reason why that officer can't actually be exported to other councils, and we utilise the services even more and generate some income.
Yeah, okay, understand. Thanks very much.
Michael, please.
Yeah, John, very briefly, would it be useful to have some statistics of what actually has been achieved? Because you talk about the great success and excellent work has been done, but it'd be actually nice to know what achievements have been derived, and also, John, whether that could be communicated onto our comms department, because it's something that I think if we've got a success, why don't we promote it? And I think there's merit in actually extolling the virtues of actually having someone concentrating on fly tipping, which really, I must say, it blights society.
It certainly does, Michael. And what I will do is I will email Sean, and hopefully during his presentation, he will give us those figures. If that's okay with members, unless you want it before the meeting. Sandra, please.
Timing, I don't mind, but just to say, I would personally support such a recommendation from the council. We've seen a huge improvement in our area around Warfield. It will be good, Michael, to quantify the amount. I absolutely agree with you, and I think we should do that either at the presentation or beforehand. But if it works, let's go for it. And it seems to be working. So there we are. I would support it.
There might come a time when we get no fly tipping in Bracknell Forest, which would be fantastic, and then the officer could actually be used to do other things with the licensing. But
or farmed out, as you say, to other areas.
Or you can go and do different types of enforcement. Of course, don't forget our enforcement team also look at social housing as well. So any conditions of social housing, and of course that has been in the news recently as well, with the sad death of that 2-year-old child from Malden Dam. And again, our enforcement team would go and look at those type of situations. Members, any other questions, please? I see no hands up. Does any member have any other business or things that they would like to have information on ahead of the recommendations meeting, or at the recommendations meeting, or when Sean Murphy gives us a presentation on the strategy of the Public Protection Partnership? As I see no hands up, I'm assuming that everybody is content. Michael?
No,
Sorry, you
my
just turned
hands
your camera on,
up.
so I thought you was going to come with a comment.
No, camera off.
Actually, Michael, could you stay on the line at the end, please? for
Yes, I
us?
will. Of course,
Thank you.
John. Yes, I will.
So members, thank you for your time tonight. It's been much appreciated. I look forward to seeing everyone on the 8th of December. And then again on the 14th of December when we discuss the recommendations. So please enjoy the rest of the evening and thank you all for your participation tonight.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Cheers. Thanks, Esther.
Thank you.